You're listening to Crossing the Axis, the podcast that explores the commercial side of film production. With your host, James Keblas.
Welcome, listeners, and thank you for tuning in to the show. As many of you know, I believe that too many agency owners aren't achieving their desired results from their salespeople because they're assigning tasks that would be more effectively handled with a marketing lead. That's because, I believe, the best sales work begins after a potential client calls about your services. A good salesperson, for example, closes the deal by deeply understanding the client's goals, eliminates competitive bids from consideration, and facilitates the highest value deal for the agency and the client. I've come to believe that almost everything before that call is best left to marketing. However, there is one major exception to this methodology, and that is hiring a salesperson for lead generation through in-person sales trips. In fact, it could be easily argued that in-person sales trips might be the number one method for bringing in new business. It works so well that it even overcomes undifferentiation because the clients are built on relationships, and that is very effective. I know a few agency owners with teams who excel at outbound sales through in-person travel. One of them said to me recently, "You can't make friends and memories with marketing." Touché. The person who said that is Jeff Oswalt, and he's my guest for today's conversation about the intricacies of effective sales trips. Jeff is the president and partner of an interactive marketing agency called 144 that provides UX, design, and development support on digital campaigns, including clients like Nike, AT&T, The North Face, Google, Toyota, Pepsi, and many others. In addition to producing attention-grabbing work, 144's almost 2-decade-long existence is a testament to Jeff's belief in building relationships through traveling to meet clients where they are and creating those face-to-face interactions. Jeff knows what he's talking about when it comes to business development, and he's graciously agreed to share some of his tips and tricks to getting a return on setting aside time and budget for travel. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, James. And I feel like this is just a natural extension of conversations you and I've been having for a year or so. So I'm happy to be here and excited to hang out for a bit.
I'm so glad you said that. That's exactly how I feel about it. I was like, oh man, we've been talking for about a year now, and we just keep having these conversations that actually I learn from, and I get to, kind of build my own ideas from, and all of that. I thought, God, this would be a great episode for others to hear. So that's what this is, and I'm glad you're in for it.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. I mean, to sort of pick up where we left off a few weeks ago, even it feels like, we often talk about marketing, sales, outbound, nurturing, among other things. We talk about music a fair amount too, I feel like. So I don't want to sell us short on just talking about sales all the time. But yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk through maybe my methodology and, kind of a disclaimer to some of this too. I was thinking about this morning that, a lot of these practices we're going to talk about or things I do and don't do, some of that's changed. You're kind of catching me at a weird spot, sort of this post-pandemic remote workforce, dispersed teams, which I'm all for. And certainly we do here at 424. But, it's a dynamic and it's a shift in sort of the days where you could, fly to a city like New York or San Francisco and go to the Omnicom building and meet with BBDO, Chiat, and a bunch of other Omnicom shops kind of in one afternoon. That looks a little different now. So it's interesting to kind of think through what's worked and what continues to work. But yeah, I think I still stick by, it's hard to make friends and memories through a Zoom call.
I love that line. Loved it so much because it does show the strength of the other of these visits and why they're useful and good. And I want to get into the changes that you've talked about too, because I think I'm kind of curious. I can imagine a scenario where it's gotten harder to build those kinds of clients, or maybe it's gotten easier because now it's more special. And that's a thing that's different versus a Zoom call and stuff like that. But before we get into all of that, I want to know a little bit about you. We have to establish your credibility, Jeff. we have to let people know what the words that come from you have value. So I want to hear. In fact, I don't know if I know totally your background. How did you get into this business?
I started with a game company way back in the day. So doing PR and marketing for a video game company, a studio, actually. Those of you that are listening and are old enough to remember the titles Mist and Riven, I worked for those guys. It was called Cyan at the time. I think there's Cyan Worlds now, and learned a lot about the scenes and the art that they created were just beautiful and won several awards. So learned a lot about taking your time and doing things right. From there, I moved into this is where our paths parallel a little bit, but moved into more of a production background. So doing a lot of film, worked for a couple different companies. The last sort of production company I worked for was called North by Northwest. Learned a lot there too. They were, at the time I was there, doing a lot of film, kind of like direct to DVD, I guess, back in the day work. And then a lot of commercials with different agencies, mostly regional agencies in Oregon, Washington, some in Idaho. But so a lot of that kind of work. And then my two business partners approached me and said, hey, we want to start something else. And the timing was just kind of right for me to take a lot of what I had learned working with agencies at North by Northwest and putting that into 14.4 and kind of servicing that market, but from a digital production standpoint and design and animation, and less on back in the day, we were shooting 16, 35 millimeter beta. So away from that to, more digital.
So you all thought, okay, you know what? We're smarter. We could do this better if we had our own company. We're going to go do it. And you thought you had some kind of expertise that you would play into. Now tell us a little bit about 14.4 and your role there.
Yeah, that's for 14.4. It was very similar to, we would come into ad agencies at the time our focus out of the gate was certainly Seattle was kind of our home market. We're located in Spokane, Washington, which is a short 4-ish hour drive to the east. But so we spent a lot of time, again, kind of what we're talking about here, on the road or being over in Seattle and working with agencies over there. So you had, some awesome agencies back when we were starting in 2007 with like Wesley School for Girls and Creature. Seattle really had a really cool creative community at the time. DDB had a great team there and so they were selling in, digital campaign components to their clients. Microsoft, McDonald's, North Face. We did some stuff for Red Hook Brewing. Those were the early jobs. So it was an easy one-to-one in the sense that we were coming in and still working with creatives and account people at agencies. The focus was just more on, websites or at that point, Flash animations and very engaging and motion oriented websites and dynamic sort of digital campaigns versus, the hiring the director and the talent that you would do on the film side.
Is that because you saw a need in that area, or you had someone around you who had a particular skill? You come from this production background. You didn't do a production company per se. You went, a different direction. So why did you do that though? What'd you see?
I think it wasn't so much, it was more we heard, and especially my partners too, were hearing, they were getting calls from their contacts in Seattle saying, hey, we just sold in a website, is that one word or two? And how do we build this? And so, almost agencies sort of selling in a component to a campaign and then going, oh, the client bought that, now we have to do it. So we were getting, I wouldn't say panicked calls, but more, hey, can you help us out? And so we thought there's a real market here to kind of focus. And again, this was 2007, 8, 9, focus really on helping service agencies specifically. So at that point, we weren't doing much direct to brand work.
Well, your work is beautiful. It's got a stunning pop feel to it. I encourage listeners to go to your website and check it out. What's your role at the company?
When we started, it was everything. I was processing payroll, stocking the kitchen, doing sales, doing some account work. Now it's still a lot of biz dev. We have a sales team, 3 other people. So I help work with them and provide support as they need it. And then I work pretty closely with our creative team as well and our account team. So we have some really smart tech leads. I don't write a line of code, so I really rely on them to help with that. So my day-to-day now is more focused on sort of that outbound client service, biz dev, and then creative pieces.
And how many mouths are you having to feed? How many FTEs do you have?
We're at 22 right now. So yeah, it's a nice size. I enjoy it. We've been as big. I think our biggest was 36 or 7. I can't remember the exact head count, but so we've kind of, and we've been as small as 1. So yeah, we've done it all. I like the size is pretty nice. You can get a lot of really good work done, and it's a good culture for us.
I had an observation when you were talking. I didn't put together until just now that since you're in Spokane, Washington, which is remote by most standards, it's maybe created a force function just to do any business. Even to Seattle's 4 hours, it's just far enough away where you do have to make those sales trips. And then it builds a discipline, and then it becomes a skill that you're really good at, and maybe becomes the lead generation. What's the difference between Seattle and New York? Might as well just go since we're so remote. That's the nature of our business anyway.
Yeah. Did you just shorten this podcast to 5 minutes because you just summed it up? No, I mean, I'm glad you came to that. I was going to sort of weave that narrative, but absolutely. When we started the company, we knew, again, because of the contacts we had in Seattle, we knew that the work we wanted to do was going to be nationally focused eventually. And, we needed to sort of be in the markets where that type of work was being bought and done and produced. And so, yeah, absolutely a lot of trips to Seattle right out of the gate. And then it became, well, what's another half hour to San Francisco? What's another half hour to LA? So that was kind of our trajectory, was definitely Seattle, Portland. And then, I don't know, not many months in, started going right to San Francisco and LA. And so interestingly, we found probably better traction in San Francisco and LA. Seattle, the Seattle Spokane thing, like anybody listening with kind of, first city, second city in any state, there was a little like, but wait, you're in Spokane. Can you really handle our Microsoft project? Don't you guys park your cars in the front yard? And,
It's the chance for Seattle people to act to Spokane the way New York or LA people act to Seattle.
Yeah, exactly. So it was fun. I mean, a lot of good jokes. I think, again, to your point, the work speaks for itself, and the team we had was talented. So it was more just a jest than I think ever really hurt us. But yeah, going back to your point, we were traveling to Seattle a lot. The client base was there for the first 6 months to a year. And so we were there probably every other week. So again, it was a good habit forming for that sort of trip sort of idea and spending FaceTime.
Well, and you have to actually build that in, though. I mean, I don't think it's easily taken for granted, because you have to go, okay, I'm going to be gone a bit. How does this place run when I'm not here? Having the money, really thinking about spend and return on those types of things with a little bit more intentionality than if you were just dialing for dollars and doing remote and LinkedIn or something like that.
Yeah. And I think, now too, you could compare all those metrics are easy to capture. How much you spend on travel. You can look at how much, if you're doing a marketing campaign that's maybe social media focused or email, what the cost and the return on that is. So yeah, you can look at that. I mean, I think travel's an expensive capital investment up front. Plane tickets aren't always cheap. Hotels aren't cheap. And you look at what it takes to run an email campaign for a month, it's a fraction of what it would take to take 2 trips to LA in a month. So yeah, it's a bit of a big swing, I think. And one that's a little bit of a slow burn. You can feel it pay off, but there's definitely times where it feels like a trip is not as fruitful as maybe you had hoped it would have been. But then, the week after the trip, you get a couple phone calls or follow-ups or, that sort of thing that help sort of turn it into something that's, oh, that was worth it.
Okay, so let's get into it. How many business trips have you made this summer, 2024? And it's entering August.
Yeah, it's picked up for me a little bit this year, more so than probably since 2020. I would say I've traveled more so far. So I don't know how many trips. Let's say probably 10 year to date, if I had to guess, 8 to 10. And those have been a few to LA, a few to San Francisco, a few to Seattle, one to New York, one to Denver. I think that's it off the top of my head. I might be leaving something out, but that's the big ones. As a company, though, we've gone to Dallas probably 3 times this year, Chicago once, New York as a company probably 7 times that we've been there in person. So yeah, it's having a team that can help do that. And our sales team, we have one full-time person in Seattle, one full-time person in Austin, Texas, and one in New York. So it helps to have people within striking distance of bigger markets. And that's helps. Yeah.
They kind of serve as like satellite functions, right?
Yeah. I mean, a trip from Austin to Chicago is the same time and cost as it would be from, Spokane to, say, San Francisco. It's, a couple hours on a plane and you're there.
And when you're taking all these sales trips, what percentage would you guess is made of current clients versus new clients? Like how much of it is account management, talking to clients you currently have, making sure you're close, maybe trying to build greater projects with them, or, hey, I would like to introduce 14.4 and see what you guys have going on and if there's a fit?
Yeah, great question. When I'm planning for a trip for me, and I think my sales team does this similarly too, you sort of have I want to have these new meetings. I've been emailing this person, or we just connected on LinkedIn, had a quick back and forth. I want to go see this person. They're high on my list. So you may have, let's say you're going to be gone for 3 days. You may have 10 of those that you're really hoping kind of your tier, like these are new contacts. I know if I can get in front of them and spend a lunch or a coffee or a happy hour or something like that, do an activity even, it doesn't always have to be food or coffee. I know that's going to help us build that relationship. And then you kind of have your other meetings that are people that have become friends over the years, that, you can text the day of and say, hey, by the way, I'm in town and, I don't have anything going on in a couple hours. You want to connect for a quick hello over a coffee or something. So I try to break those out and really focus on the new. But, the reality is you might, of those 10, get 3 or 4. So 30 or 40% that actually turn in of those new. And then you would hope with the people you already have a relationship with, that's more like 60 to 70%. We do have a term, we call them AGMs, which is another great meeting, and it drips with sarcasm. And so we always try to avoid sales trips that are full of AGMs, just because that's like, no offense, James, but, hanging out with you for breakfast is an AGM. I get value from that. We get to compare notes, but I'm not leaving that meeting right in a scope of work or anything like that. So
good. I love it. So I love the AGMs. How do you reach out to the potential clients that you want to meet?
When I'm reaching out to somebody that maybe I haven't met with in person, I try to keep it short. I try to keep it specific. So things like, what are you doing Wednesday at 10 a.m.? I know, hey, can we go grab a cup of coffee? Hey, thanks for the connection on LinkedIn, but I'd love to get a coffee. I'm in town for some meetings, some other meetings, and I would love to connect with you. So I try to keep it short and very specific to a time and a day. More often than not, the person might respond with, oh, I can't meet at 10 o'clock on Wednesday, but I'm available from 3 to 4 if you want to swing by my neighborhood coffee shop. Great, on it. And then kind of having some redundancy, because again, with travel, you never know. So sometimes I'll double book myself, knowing that one might fall through, or if they both confirm, I can push one a half hour on either side. So there is a bit of, you have to be sort of very fluid in your schedule and know that at some point, that's why it's not bad to double book. If you have an AGM as one meeting, but a new client as the other, you can always bump the AGM a half hour, hopefully.
I love how specific you are in your request for these types of things. It's positioning in some ways, right? You're saying, hey, do you want to get together? I'm in town that week. That's hard for anyone to get their head around. They have to think, they have to do stuff. But if you say, I'm going to be in your neighborhood on Wednesday around noon, do you want to get together? It's saying very specifically what's going on, and easier for people to react if they're free or not, and therefore more likely to get a response. I think you could extend that same theory all the way up to how you're marketing your business. I think, be specific and clear.
The goal of the trip or any sort of travel is to spend face time with someone. And so me sending a link with our latest deck of work is great, but it's a loss for what I'm trying to achieve in a trip. So I think, to your point, what I'm hoping to do is be very specific and not sort of friend zone myself into like, oh, just send me your latest and, I'll make sure the creatives see it, or I'll make sure the producers see it, or I'll make sure the people that need to see it. We get those kind of emails all day. So if you're sending out that pre-trip email saying, hey, check out our latest. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be in town. By the way, I'm going to be in town is almost excusing the whole reason to get together. So the whole reason to get together is to spend time and then follow up with the recent work after that.
When you're thinking about who you want to meet with, certainly proximity, they're in that town, is one variable. But I would imagine a more important variable is that you've seen something from them that you believe fits with what you, right? You have an idea, like either they do really great work that's similar to yours, and you think since you do great work and they do great work, you should know each other, or they do bad work. How tightly focused are you on these people as potential clients and what you know about them and how you believe 14.4 can help them?
I would say in the early days, it's a lot of going on websites and seeing the kind of work either the brand's doing or the agency's doing. Is that a fit for our current skill set of the team? I mean, we've been in business for almost 18 years. So certainly our sweet spot has always been digital. But within that, depending on the makeup of the team, we have certain strengths and things that maybe aren't as strong at certain times. So it's sort of knowing the team, knowing how to position that, and remembering that obviously while I'm out there as the face of the team, who I'm really selling is the developers and the people at 14.4, that culture, that team. You can work with a lot of different people. I believe we're the best because you get our whole team. Like, our creative director, Harry, we have the only Harry. So
the talent.
Talent wise and culture wise. And if that's somebody you want on your team to help you get this project done, then we're the only people that offer that. If I were starting out again, day one today, it would be focused on people who fit the profile of work we want to do or are capable of doing. So yes, that does look a lot like what types of work are agencies doing or brands doing in the digital space. And can we come along and offer value to that? I think now it looks more like going to a market, meeting with somebody and they're like, you need to meet my good friend that works at this place. They don't really do everything you do, but they could really use you. And that's, I'm not going to really get that over an email back and forth. I'm not really going to get that maybe in a Zoom or a Google Hangout, but those calls are different that's more like a phone call. It's sort of question and answer. It's a little more binary than it is free flow, like a coffee can be, or a dinner, or going to a baseball game or something like that, where you have that time to sort of unpack things more than just, do you do this? Yes, I do. What do you do with this kind of work? We do this, and that to me is more of a Zoom interaction, or an email is almost just a more stripped down version of that versus having somebody's sort of undivided attention.
The thing that I sense from you, and I'm getting in this conversation and I've gotten it in previous conversations, is just the commitment you have to developing the relationship with the person. Like that's what you're doing, right? Even your quote back to me about you can't have that with marketing reinforces that that's your approach on that.
If I'm to put on my sales hat and only, I would think, at the end of the day, if I'm a salesperson and I'm doing sales for 14.4 or a paper company, when I retire, what do I have from that? Because I've certainly, all the financial things you want to say, but at the end of the day, if I haven't made relationship and friendship and been around people that have helped me grow both in professionally and personally, that to me, from a sales standpoint, is the real takeaway at the end of the day. Like I want to be around people. So I do lean into the relationship really hard because I believe that, that connection can make me better at my job, even if they're not going to give me a project. And so I think it's that holistic approach that, as a salesperson, what are you left with when you sort of retire or maybe make a career pivot? Hopefully it's a group of friends that would still want to go on a walk with you when you show up in New York on a Wednesday morning. That's important. So I try to take that and weigh that as much as the value of obviously being out there and trying to get people to hire 14.4.
Do you ever do things like events?
Yeah, we do. Yes, 100%. We've thrown parties. We've used those for talent recruitment, BizDev, everything, you name it. I think for me personally, I would prefer to take 6 to 8 potential clients out to a concert at the Hollywood Bowl or an LAFC soccer match or, a boat excursion on the Sound in Seattle or something. I think I get a lot more business and value out of those interactions. Parties can be awesome, but parties mean we need to staff it with all our sales team. And now suddenly everybody's traveling to one location. We're starting to put all our eggs into that basket. They still can work. The problem is, like, if you're going to throw a big party, let's say for South by, you can have up to 200 people at this venue. there's no way you can talk to 200 people, even if you have your whole team of 20 there. And what I've noticed when we do that is, again, if you're breaking out the tier of like guest lists, the people that you really want at the party of 200, there's 10 to 20 that you really want to interact with and show a good time. And then there's kind of the next people that are the AGMs. And then there's kind of just like friends, because you want it to be packed. And suddenly you start to take those price points, right? I mean, now this is the business owner side, and you start putting a price per head on the guest list. And it's like, man, I just paid for a bunch of my friends to come and hang out, when really all I wanted to do was pay for these, 20 people I wanted to talk to. So again, I find for a South by Southwest example, your time's better spent trying to do smaller, more meaningful events or interactions, or just take those 10 people to a really nice dinner and then go crash a competitor's party with them. Let them pay for the open bar. I'll pay for the nice wine and the steaks.
So you build your sales trips around the competitors' big parties.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that I haven't done that.
I love it.
When it comes to something like South by Southwest, or a big industry sort of where everybody's going to be together, yeah, we'll all go to the party where that artist is going to be performing that night. But before that, why don't we all go get a nice dinner on 14.4, and then we'll show up there together. And there's the competitive side of you. There is something about walking in with the 10 clients that you just take at a dinner that competitor also wanted to have time with, but now you're hanging out with them at their party.
Yeah, you just keep reinforcing why I like you so much. I love it.
Well, that's my other, that's the running, competitive skiing running side of me. So that trickles in.
Why don't you give us a little bit of a journey? Give us a story of how long it takes. What's the lead time for identifying a potential client, meeting with them, in-person travel, developing the relationship afterwards, and then getting to a deal? Is there kind of a case study that comes to mind, and kind of how, maybe two, one where it went really quicker than expected, and one where it took forever?
That's a great question. I mean, I have the lens of being able to look back over several years of doing this. So currently, I have a great, strong network. So, it's easier for me now than it was to go into a city and get a bunch of meetings. So I want to caveat everything we're saying with, that does get easier the more, relationships you make. Obviously, the network grows and it becomes more solid and less cold and more nurture. So this still happens. I was in LA. When was that? 2 weeks ago. And I was setting up the trip kind of as I talked through, here's sort of my tier ones. I want to make sure I get in front of these people. Here's a tier two, people that I've met with a few times. Maybe they haven't reached out to about any work recently. And I reached out to one of those folks, kind of a tier two, and said, hey, I'm going to be in town. Did you want to catch up for a slice of pizza? And I know this person, I've met with him a bunch of times. And he says, sorry, I can't, I'm busy, but do you guys do animation? Like, yeah, we do animation. Okay, great. I'm going to put you in contact with my producer that's on this other animation project. They're going to reach out. Puts me in contact. 2 hours later, that producer reaches out. 4 hours later, we're bidding on a project. So that took zero in-person, but had I not had the in-persons, I don't know that it would have gone that way. And so that's an example of where A, in-person has helped. B, I didn't even take this person out to a pizza or anything, but a job came out of it. And I didn't meet with that client when I was in LA. So, but having had that already and having had those shared experiences allows me to send that 3 to 5 sentence email. Hey, I'm going to be in town. Haven't seen you for a while. Let's connect. There's no sales pitch in that other than just like, let's spend a half hour together. And so that led to work. Now there's other times we go to a market, or I go to a market and I meet someone and they're so fun to hang out with, and they're always up to go out. After maybe 3 trips and that hasn't turned into a bid, they might slide from lunch to a late morning coffee and croissant. And that's not because I'm there to obviously win work, so I do value them as a friend, or I do value that relationship as somebody I want to stay in touch with, because obviously there's a connection there and you never know where they're going to be in 4 or 5 years. So that's worth it. That's not a loss. It's just not, it's not that tier one sort of thing. And so maybe they turn into more of that, another great meeting or AGM.
And how long would you say a typical example is of how long a lead time it takes from that call to a job lands, not counting the first example of 4 hours?
Yeah, that's just tricky. I am always surprised how fast it can happen and how slow. I certainly think for us working with agencies, the lead time is a lot quicker. Typically, the agencies have already done the work of selling in the campaign to the client and they're ready to make something. So when they reach out to us, it's very, hey, we're ready to go. We need to be in market in a month or 3 months. When we're working with our direct to brand clients, that's a little bit longer of a lead time. They're running programs throughout the year. Those things change. Direct to brand teams, sometimes they have the luxury of making changes up to the last minute. Typically, when we work with direct to brand, we're working with internal sort of agencies almost. And, they're their own client in a way. So, we decided we're just going to push that out to, by a month. So while those lead times, maybe the work we bid on gets in faster. So as a sales rep, I'm excited because, hey, we got a bid out the door, the scope, like we're just waiting on them to say go now, but it's our job. That can look a little bit longer than, say, an agency. On average, that's really hard to answer, James. I wish I could sit here and tell you, hey, Jeff, find a new agency job in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. How long would that take you? I don't know. That might take me a week. It might take me a year. The likelihood is I probably know somebody at an agency in Milwaukee, Wisconsin that I could, in a day or two, get in front of and talk about 424, but they might not have that right work, or they might not be doing a bunch of digital work.
Do you do any marketing? Do you do a monthly newsletter? Are you active in social media? Are you doing thought leadership and insights or anything like that in addition to the sales trip?
No. That's the short answer. And I say that with so much, I hate that I'm being that transparent. I wish I could tell you yes. I have, and it's ironic I'm doing this with you, but I do have an aversion to sort of thought leadership. I mean, it's probably just being in the ad industry for so long. Anybody that's a thought leader or a coach it gets a bit of an eye roll from me. And I don't, those people do provide value. They can really help. So I recognize my own errancy in proclaiming that. So yes, I wish I was more comfortable. It's probably just more my own self-doubt. I wish I was more comfortable in posting on LinkedIn more. I do think there is probably value in that from a sales standpoint. Actually, I don't think. I know there is. I wish we were better at newsletters. We did make a run at it, but at the end of the day, we take the money we invest in travel and relationship is probably what most shops would invest in that newsletter team, in a couple designers or a junior designer and copywriter to make sure that, every other week there's a newsletter going out or there's some new design update to the website. We've sort of taken that resource, both of time and talent, and shifted that more to the relationship piece of things. So, I don't know that one's necessarily better than the other. I think doing more thought leadership and newsletters will lead to a quicker sales cycle. So if you were to start out now, in the climate we're in, I would say probably newsletters and some sort of social media outreach is going to be a way stronger tool than just jumping on a plane and showing up at LAX and saying, all right, let's Uber to this office.
I think it works for you. I think it works for you because it's a strength that's been embedded into the DNA of your company for whatever reason. We've discussed a few things that have just kind of created what it is, and it works for you. So there is no right. It's not right or wrong. It's if you, and I hope that one of the takeaways is from conversation is if something's working from you, great. Maybe here's some things to put fuel in the fire and make it even better. And if things aren't working for you, rethink that and maybe try one of these other approaches or tweak the system a little bit.
Yeah. And I would say, much like we'll lean into email outreach, kind of cold outreach campaigns. And I would encourage somebody that's maybe doing more newsletters and thought leadership sort of things to maybe jump on a plane and show up at the city. And, there's been times, James, I've booked trips without any meetings, just knowing that if I show up and I still can't book a meeting, being there will get me a meeting. And it works. Hey, I'm here now. Oh, you're here? Yeah. I told you I was coming. Oh, yeah. Well, okay, great. Yeah, I can go get a coffee. I mean, it's just, there is sort of just being there and taking that a little bit of a leap of faith. I'm not saying travel across country to do that, but most people live within an hour flight from some big city or somewhere where they could benefit from doing a little on the ground sales work or memory making friends. I mean, that's just what we,
Right.
that's what it boils down to. Like I said, making friends and making memories. And I think most people want to work with people they like. That is a differentiator at the end of the day. Certainly skill set and ability to perform the job, but also you want to know that during the process of doing that work, this person and you share some sort of bond.
So what tips and tricks have you developed that we haven't talked about? What do's and don'ts do you have? Any kind of lasting thoughts on the sales trip approach?
Oh, that's a great one. What's worked well for me is a lot of those, hey, do you want to meet for a run tomorrow morning? Hey, do you want to go, something that's just more than, hey, do you want to meet up at the Starbucks? Or, hey, I'll take you to dinner at the sushi place. Yeah, that's fun too. But I found over the years, it's just, hey, do you want to meet at this park and go for a walk? Or, hey, do you want to meet up tomorrow morning down by the Santa Monica Pier and we'll do a jog and then get a smoothie or something after. Another thing I love doing is like doing super touristy things with people in their own cities.
That's great.
That's like, it's such a weird thing. But like, hey, James, you want to go take a duck boat ride? I've never done that in Seattle. And you're like, nobody does that. Right. Only tourists do. It's like, I know, let's go do it. And, there's something fun about that because you as the potential client is going to be like, yeah, if you're going to pay for me to go on a duck boat, sure, I guess. Right.
I've always been kind of curious about it anyway. Now you're giving me a reason to, and I didn't have to be the one that said I wanted to do it.
Yeah. So I think, those sort of events or field trips, whatever you want to call them, play pretty well. Force people to be a tourist in their city would be one thing I would say is a definite do. So following up after that, I would say the other do is if you email, let's say 30 people to try to line up meetings and you end up with a nice schedule of, let's say 4 to 6 meetings a day on a 2-day trip, you still have, let's say that's 6 meetings. You still have 24 follow-ups after the trip. So the week I get back from a trip is a really busy week for me because I'm following up. Hey, sorry, I missed you last week. Had a great time. Went to this game. Hopefully we can catch a baseball game next time or take that duck boat trip. But, here's our latest work, or hey, I'd love to jump on a video chat with you. So I look at those interactions as still valuable. And those are other tools in the toolbox, like I said. Or maybe you come back from a trip and you have a thought leadership post you're going to put on LinkedIn or some post on your social media channels that sort of reinforce that, oh man, I didn't meet with Jeff this time, but next time he comes down, I want to make sure we get some time together.
Jeff Oswalt, you've been informative and transparent and very helpful. Thank you so much. I know you're going to hate hearing this, but you're becoming a thought leader now.
I'll add that to LinkedIn.
You just did it just now. So, and thank you for doing it on this show. Your wisdom is great. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you over the past year. This conversation has been such a great continuation of the previous conversations. Your company kicks ass. I have great respect for it. Everyone should be checking it out. And congratulations on the great success and how well you build relationships.
Well, I appreciate that, James. I'm smiling ear to ear. I know this is a podcast, but it's been fun to hang out with you and get to know you. And I appreciate what you're doing here in the space. I think it's a great outlet and you've had some really smart folks on this show. So I'm happy to be included in that, but by no means, I pale in comparison to some of the other folks you've had. So it's fun to watch and listen as you grow this podcast.
Right on.
Thank you for listening to Crossing the Axis with James Keblas. If you're interested in joining the conversation or have a topic you'd like covered, please drop a note at keblas.com. That's Keblas.com.